Did you know that homes on tree-lined streets can sell for at least 15% or more? Probably not super shocking, but here in San Mateo County, tree-lined streets have a ton of financial value. And that's not just from an aesthetics perspective, but also from a community and lifestyle perspective. I'm gonna share with you guys today a bunch of different neighborhoods on the peninsula where you can get a home at a variety of different price points in awesome tree-lined streets and just beautiful neighborhoods. One of the most frequent requests I get from people is that they wanna live on tree-lined streets. So today, it's all about the trees. So let's start with Burlingame. Burlingame has been a Tree City USA for over 30 straight years, and I'll tell you about what that means in a second. But what's interesting is we're actually in the Burlingame Gables neighborhood right now. I grew up here until I was 5 years old, and you have really high tree density. That's why I kind of wanted to start this video by kind of showing you what I think is fantastic. So you have tons of trees here. Basically, every home on this block has a massive tree. I mean, these trees are like 30, 40 feet high. It's just absolutely beautiful. In fact, sometimes there's none right here, but sometimes I see these like little fairy houses kind of at the base of the tree. They're really cute. Little kids will maintain them, and I don't know too much more about them because it's not my thing, but they are really cool and I kind of see them around the neighborhood. And so we kind of have a few different pockets in Burlingame where there's like extremely high tree density, but if like the scale is like here for like this being a neighborhood on the peninsula that has very few trees and this has tons of trees, like all of Burlingame is going to kind of be like at the top. When you kind of think about those areas, if you want to be in a flatter neighborhood like Burlingame Gables where we are now, you can walk to downtown Burlingame, which is like amazing. You basically just walk back through. That's like the new Burlingame Parks and Rec Center over there. That's a $52 million structure that opened about a year ago. There was a rec center there, up until a few years ago, and they kind of tore that one down. I went to summer camp there growing up, and it was really fun. And then you have the whole Washington Park. You could say like campus, but Washington Park is massive. You have basketball court, which is new. A lot of people like to play bocce ball there on the weekends. There's also a huge play structure. People rent out like the little picnic areas for barbecues and birthday parties. Your walking distance to Caltrain. And then Burlingame Avenue in downtown is just on the other side. So it's kind of nice, like wherever you live in this neighborhood, you can just walk to downtown and there's like gorgeous trees everywhere. I mean, we have a ton here. We have like, if we just kind of take a look at this house, for example, I just love like there's a maple tree in front, a really small one. There's like another maple right over here. And so it's when we kind of talk about tree density, it's not just like what are the public trees, but it's also what do people have in front of their house. If you go in the Shoreview and Parkside neighborhood in San Mateo, which is going to be an entry, more of a starter home price point, awesome neighborhood, done many transactions there. Homes there are going to be 1.2 to 1.7, but there's just less tree density there. And so if you're looking for something that has this like beautiful neighborhood feel, that's kind of what we're going to be focusing on in this video. So some other neighborhoods in Burlingame that are going to have really high tree density. I mean, they're all pretty awesome, but we're in Burlingame Gables, like I said, so just south of Burlingame Gables, that's the Lion Hogue neighborhood. Burlingame Avenue is kind of the dividing line if you're getting all technical, but that neighborhood is called Lion Hogue. It's named after the two dudes who developed the neighborhood, Lion and Hogue. And that neighborhood has a little bit less tree density than Burlingame Gables. So some streets are gonna have higher tree density than others, but it's still like really pretty. I like it a lot. You can get like a 2-bedroom home in Lion Hogue or Burlingame Gables is gonna kind of be like 1.7 to 2.1, 2.2. A 3-bedroom is going to kind of start in the low 2s and go up to like the higher 2s. And then a 4-bedroom is going to kind of be like low 3s to low 4s, something like that. Other neighborhoods in Burlingame that I think would check the box if you want to have like really high tree density would be Burlingame Terrace, which is just south of Broadway, just north of Burlingame Avenue, but really like north of Oak Grove, because south of Oak Grove, there's a lot of apartments and condos in there, which are really beautiful. So if you're looking to buy a condo and you're watching this, then that's going to be kind of your spot, like downtown Burlingame, Floribunda, Bellevue, like all in that pocket. Condos there are going to kind of range from like about $800,000 up to $1.3, $1.4 million. So going back to Burlingame Terrace, that's kind of right near the fire station on California Drive. And that's kind of like you could say the best location in Burlingame in that you're equidistant from both Broadway and Burlingame Avenue, which is really nice if you kind of value being able to walk to both those two pockets. So if we're talking about the northern part of Burlingame where there's still like fantastic tree density, just north of Broadway, east of El Camino, west of California Drive, that's going to be the Burlingame Grove neighborhood or Burlingame Gate, basically the same spot. And then just north of that is going to be Burlingame Village. These neighborhoods have like pretty good tree density as well, kind of similar price point as Burlingame Gables, Burlingame Terrace, Lion Hogue. The lot sizes here are going to be 6,000 square feet. You're not seeing anything huge or massive, but like that's kind of like if you look around me now, we're shooting this now in Burlingame Gables, but like here you have like this home's probably like 2,600 square feet. feet. You have another home here that's probably like 2,000 square feet. And then next to that, like we have some other like smaller homes. So that's kind of the nice thing about Burlingame is you're getting all different size homes all next to each other with all different types of architecture styles. Whereas if you want things that look very similar or homogeneous, you can go out to Foster City, Redwood Shores. We have really good tree density out there. And that's going to be like more master planned. You're not going to be like walkable to stuff, but that's okay. You're going to be getting like a much better value, lower price per square foot there. You can get really good floor plans, a lot of ranch style homes, could have a washer dryer on the second level of the house perhaps. So there's a lot of like pros about living out there, but you are on highly engineered landfill. That may or may not be a concern for you. My view now, sadly, is pick the natural disaster that you're open to being exposed to, because we could have earthquakes, we could have landslides, you're gonna have termite issues, drainage issues. The peninsula, unfortunately, there's just a lot of things going on. I mean, we're not Florida where you have hurricanes and other things, but we certainly have our fair share of opportunities for natural disasters here. So not trying to encourage people to be in one spot versus another, just trying to make you aware. All right, so we're just walking to our next spot here, but we just came across one of these like little fairy houses. So we're not gonna touch it, but you go down here. Oh, cool, look, something little, I don't know if it's a unicorn. Yeah, it kind of fell over there. Let's put her back in place. And there's like a little pearl down here. That's cool, let's kind of put the pearl back. And like this neighborhood is fun, right? Because we're a couple weeks, there'll be like tons of kids trick-or-treating around here. I like it. That's kind of the fun thing about Burlingame. You just kind of get a little bit of everything. All right, so what is a Tree City USA? Burlingame has been a Tree City USA for over 30 straight years, and there's 4 main requirements of that. Number 1, there needs to be like a dedicated department within the city where the city's kind of focused on this. Number 2, there needs to be like some ordinances in place that kind of focus on the health of the trees. Number 3, the city needs to spend at least $2 per year per resident on the trees. That is not a big deal. Burlingame spends way, way more than that. We have a full-time crew just focused on maintaining like all this beautiful greenery that we kind of see throughout Burlingame. And then number 4, the city needs to celebrate Arbor Day. So Burlingame is pretty cool. I mean, right now we just popped over to the Ray Park neighborhood. And I just kind of want to highlight this for you because we're on Balboa. Right over here is Ray Park itself. Actually, let's kind of walk over there and I'll kind of give you a quick sense of what Ray Park is like. But if you just take a look over here, for example, like we're just in Burlingame Gables, but if you look up here, you see these trees. We're in the fall, we're shooting this in like mid-October and the leaves are starting to change color. It's going to kind of look like this. Pretty awesome for the next like month or two, but that's kind of like when you kind of Burlingame and you value these trees, like there's just like a typical street in the neighborhood. Let's just walk like a little bit more and I want to show you what the park looks like. I just want to give you an idea, if you really like the trees here, how close it is to just kind of get into a park, kind of like right after school on a Friday afternoon. Oh, cool. You can even get your own ice cream here. And I just want to show you guys the park because if you kind of value being in a neighborhood that's tree lined, you're going to absolutely be able to check that box, like tree lined, flat, walkable to what? Like in Burlingame, you're going to be able to walk to some parks. So I just want to show you, like we're shooting this right now. It's like 3:40 on a Friday afternoon. And let's take a look over here, like how many kids are just like playing in the park. And I don't know, as a parent myself, like that's something that I think is pretty cool. Let's just take a quick look. You can see over here, like the playground. Look how many people are here right now. And this is not staged, it's not a movie, it's pretty cool. It's like a few dozen people playing, and there's actually like an outdoor ping pong table. There's tennis courts over here. There's a dog running around in the park. And anyways, I want to point out like a couple homes, that we just kind of picked out at random, just to give you an idea what they could cost. So like over here, this is a very typical home in Ray Park. It's a 3-bedroom, most likely probably 2-bath. I'm just guessing like maybe 1,600 square feet. I don't know what the condition is inside, of course, but if I had to guess, that home could be like $2.5 to $3 million. We're like super close to the park. The park was just across the street where we're filming. And then let's keep walking this way. And we'll kind of talk about like another house here. Some of these are going to be on mostly 6,000 square foot lots, but there can be some that are going to be on like even 7,000 to 10,000 square foot lots in here, but those are like going to be pretty rare. But if you kind of want to be in these like flatter areas with the beautiful trees, you could expect in Ray Park, like you could spend up to like 4 million. For example, this is a beautiful home here. This is probably a 3 or 4 bedroom home. Some of these lots here like get pretty deep. Sometimes they can get as deep as like 8,000 to 10,000 square foot lots, but most are especially in Ray Park, are going to be like probably 6,000 square foot lots, whereas like Burlingame Gables, Lion Hogue, Burlingame Terrace, those are going to be mostly 5,000 foot lots with some larger ones that are exceptions. But like take a look at this massive tree right here because we're talking about Burlingame trees. This is what's nice. These trees actually would be considered what we'd call a heritage tree. So it's not the kind of tree that if you're like, oh, I don't like the way it looks, you could just come in here and have a local tree company to chop it down. You can't do that. So if the tree is at least, I think it's like 18 inches, I could be wrong, but I think if it's like at least 18 inches in diameter, you're not going to be able to cut down that tree. So I do remember a few years ago, there was a home on, I think it was on Bernal in the Easton Addition neighborhood in Burlingame, and the developer bought it and he really wanted to remove the tree, but he couldn't because in the lot, they ended up building the house right around the tree. And it ended up being pretty cool, but not everyone would want to have like a massive tree like 2 feet from the house. You just think about it falling and whatnot. I mean, you get hit in the crosswalk. I mean, there's all kind of bad things that can happen, but sure, that's not a good way to manage risk. But anyways, my point is we take the trees very seriously in Burlingame, and having these heritage trees is not unique to Burlingame. It's something that all towns have because they don't really want people just taking down trees that they don't like. So while we're driving to the next neighborhood that I'm going to share with you guys, I just thought it's worth mentioning about trees is they are not inexpensive. I remember one client in Hillsborough once told me, in Hillsborough, if you're not familiar, is like our most expensive town on the peninsula with average prices like close to about $6 million. And that client had about 20 redwood trees on her property, which were gorgeous. But she ended up spending, I think it was something like $1,000 per tree per year to maintain. So, I mean, if you're watching this, it's probably unlikely you're going to be buying a house with 20 redwood trees. I mean, if you can find one, that's amazing, but it is expensive. So just know if you're buying something and it has like 2 or 3 really large trees, these are not like $100 a year. I mean, yes, you could just not take care of them, but if you want the tree to be healthy and you want the value of the property to be maintained, and those are all things that are important to you, then I would consider having arborists come every couple of years, check on the tree, trim it, etc. So just kind of throwing that out there to keep it in mind if you really want to do right by your trees. All right, so now we're kind of getting to the top of the list for like tree density in Burlingame. We're in the Easton Addition neighborhood. This is where 1 out of every 4 homes sell per year in Burlingame. So we average typically about 175 to 225 sales. Last year we only had 159, but that's a whole nother conversation on inventory. But you get about 1/4 of sales per year are in this neighborhood. And we're on Easton Drive, and I just wanted to kind of show you guys because you have all these eucalyptus trees. This used to be an entrance to an estate over 100 years ago, and that's kind of why you have these here. The eucalyptus trees, though, they're not native, but this is the same tree that lines like California Drive, that lines El Camino. But I wanted to point out here, this is kind of cool, each tree is kind of tagged. So this is tree number 46. It's visited quite often, I'm sure, especially like given how tall it is. Tom the tree was just a couple blocks away here. I just want to point out to you like the size here. You get these really wide sidewalks. The street's a little bit on the narrower side, but that's fine. And then you get these, like for example, these 2 homes here are beautiful. They're massive. If you like a home where you just kind of like walk right in with no stairs, like, you know, these are not a good fit for you. But if you like this kind of style with 2 stories and very stately and a few steps to kind of get into the front, love the Halloween decorations, love the Rivian in the driveway. There's a lot of fun kind of going on in the Easton Addition neighborhood. It's actually ground zero in Burlingame for trick-or-treating, which is just a few blocks away. So if you come back, you know, by the time we push this video live, it's going to be right around Halloween. So there's just a lot of good things that are happening here. In fact, actually, there's a couple dead bodies on the lawn there. Let's just like grab a quick shot of those, you know, in honor of what's coming up in the next couple weeks. All right, so we got a lot more to come, so stick around for some more neighborhoods and some different towns. But I'll just share with you, like when people tell me that they really want to be in a tree-lined neighborhood, you can check that box in both hilly neighborhoods and flat neighborhoods. A lot of times people just think about the flat neighborhoods, but some areas, and I'm gonna just give you a quick idea, like for example, Burlingame Hills is fantastic, but Mills Estates is nice, but it just doesn't have as high tree density as we have it like in the Burlingame Hills. So, and then in some other towns, like the hills of San Mateo, the hills of San Carlos, like Beverly Terrace. So there's a lot of different pockets that I think are cool. We're just gonna focus today on like some of the flatter neighborhoods because I think those are the most sought after. We can really check the box up in the hills too. It's just gonna kind of depend on where. All right, so right now we're on El Camino and we're heading south and we're in Burlingame. I just want to point out, this is cool. All these eucalyptus trees kind of lining, and you can see, I mean, these are 50 to 70 feet high, a lot of these. Having these trees does create a lot more work though for Caltrans, so they're not a big fan of them, and sometimes the tree roots kind of affect the pavement on El Camino here, so they're more expensive to maintain. But if you kind of go south of Burlingame into San Mateo, basically all the trees disappear, so I think it's kind of less exciting and kind of feels like you'd be in anywhere USA. So I'm not trying to like diss those areas, but I do want to highlight, I do think this is kind of nice that we have all the trees here. All right, so right now we're in Burlingame Park, and this is the last neighborhood that I'm gonna show you guys in Burlingame, but this is arguably my favorite neighborhood. The tree density here is through the roof. We have a random dude right here. Not that scary. But I mean, like, check out this house, for example, right here. This is a beautiful craftsman style house in Burlingame Park, probably on like a 7,000 or 8,000 square foot lot. What's nice about Burlingame Park is you can walk to downtown Burlingame. Hillsboro is just a few blocks away, so there's only a few hundred homes in the whole neighborhood. I just love it, like I said, because the large lot size, the tree density is super high. It has a very like leafy feel. A lot of the homes just kind of like have this historic vibe. None of them really look the same. So it's just a nice place that's the top of a ton of people's lists. It's very comparable to Easton Edition, where we just were a minute ago, except from here, you can actually walk to downtown Burlingame. From Easton Edition, only if you're in the southern part, like the 1,000 blocks and the 1,100 blocks. Those are nice because you can still walk to Broadway, but from here, you can walk to the Ave. So I've had a couple clients who live in Easton Edition and then move to Burlingame Park because they just value that proximity of being able to walk to Burlingame Avenue. All right, so we're here in San Mateo Park, and this is arguably the best or one of the best neighborhoods like on the whole peninsula, and it is absolutely the top of the list for high tree density. Just kind of look around me. I mean, there's like so many different types of trees here. I'd have to like pull out my app just to educate myself on what we have going on here. Like, you've got some big trees here. You've got another like massive heritage tree. I believe that's an oak right there. But I just want to point out these islands here. There's over 60 islands like this in the whole neighborhood, and these islands were actually created over 100 years ago. Not only to kind of highlight like the natural contours of the neighborhood, but also more important because over 100 years ago, how did people get around? This was before the Model T. It was by horse and buggy in San Mateo Park, along with Hillsboro and parts of Burlingame Park. These were all very wealthy areas and still are to this day, but kind of like bedroom communities of San Francisco. So people would live in San Francisco and then they would like come down to this area for the weekend. It would take them like 2.5 hours to take the train down here. It just took a while. So people would build these beautiful, expansive homes, and they planted these trees like a ton of time ago. So that's kind of why you get these trees that are so beautiful. I just want to give you guys an idea like how spacious these islands are in San Mateo Park. So obviously we have like one right here. It's probably like 30 feet over there. Then check out this one over here. And this is another big one. And then if you look all the way down there, you can see like another island. So they're just kind of everywhere. And that's kind of what makes this neighborhood, it kind of gives it character, you could say. Now, one thing you can kind of see, I just want to point out here, is the utility pole. Now, this is totally not sexy or exciting, but that's something you can't really avoid unless you're looking like in Hillsboro or Foster City or Redwood Shores, where utility lines are buried. So you're going to kind of see them throughout the peninsula, whether it's a high tree density neighborhood or not. But I do think that's another benefit of living in an area where there is high tree density, because you can kind of conceal these like not so nice looking utility poles. I mean, yes, do they look like trees? I guess, but like in my view, like they're not that nice. So that's kind of an idea of San Mateo Park. And just to give you an idea on what do homes cost in here, they're kind of starting out around $3 million, and the most expensive is going to be like about $8 million, although I just saw a home a few days ago off market in San Mateo Park for $9.5 million. So it just kind of depends, but that's kind of the sweet spot here. It's more like 3 to 5 million. So let's go check out our next neighborhood. So I want to make sure you guys avoid any regrets when buying a house. So join me where we'll be talking about what it's like living in San Mateo County, or if you're thinking about moving here. I just hope you're finding a lot of value here. For this video, we are shooting 3 different days, a lot of different locations, a little bit more than we usually do, but I really wanted to bring you up close and personal with like what all these tree-lined neighborhoods are like. So if you can, I'd super appreciate it. Drop me a like. We're here now in San Carlos in the Howard Park neighborhood. The other one at the top of my list is also the White Oaks neighborhood. And both of these are super awesome because they have tons of trees. You kind of see behind me, you have really cute houses. You're walking distance to Laurel Street, which is the downtown in San Carlos. And it just gives a really nice vibe. I would say the trees here aren't going to be as old as maybe in San Mateo Park, for example, but they've all been here, 30, 40, 50 years. There's a lot of mature growth. We have like a really nice canopy kind of throughout the town, especially in the flatter areas. And it's just really nice, like grid structure. So it's very easy for walking around, you know where you're going. This street in particular, like let's just take a look at this beautiful house here. You have a lot of Halloween decorations going on, just a lot of homes with fantastic landscaping. So if you're looking for like a nice vibe where you're gonna see like kids walking to school, just families out and about. You have Burton Park, which is just a few blocks away from here, which is kind of the heart of the neighborhood for both Howard Park and White Oaks. And there's a basketball court, huge baseball field, a little park and play area. It's just a great spot, kind of a good community hub. So San Carlos is a really good place to be if you want to be flat and walkable and close to a downtown. It's going to check the box, kind of like Burlingame will check that box if you're looking for that. Schools here are also very top ranked and they're very sought after because of that. And in terms of pricing here, here in San Carlos. Actually, oh, this is cool. Let's check out the front yard here for this house. Just to give you an idea on pricing in San Carlos, homes here are gonna start at about $1.7, $1.8 million. And that's for like more like a 2-bedroom house. A 3-bedroom is gonna kind of start more like in the $2 to $2.1 million range, and then go up to like high $2 million range. And then a 4-bedroom house is gonna kind of start like in the high 2s, and then go up to about 4 to low 4s if you're looking for something that's new construction. Hey, thanks, man. We're just shooting for a video right now on tree-lined streets on the peninsula.
I'll watch that video. It's true, especially with the smaller. You always want to hit the ones with trees.
That's awesome. Getting recognized. We're just shooting a video, and some people are like, "We recognize you from your YouTube video." That's fun. All right, we're here now in Belmont, and Belmont is super awesome. Probably one of the highest tree densities of any town on the peninsula. People usually either really love Belmont, or they're like, Raziel, Belmont's just kind of not my thing. And why is that? You know, Belmont, this is actually a really flat street for Belmont. So you can kind of see it has a little bit of a grade going up there, but we struggled to find like a good block where it wasn't like super hilly. So we want to find, we found this block. And what I like about this is you have the homes in Belmont are gonna be a little bit set farther back from the street. You're gonna have like one of the highest tree densities of any town in the peninsula because you just have, it's very forested, you could say. I've had people say, oh, it feels very like Tahoe. And I would say there's some truth to that too. So again, you don't have the sidewalks, you have homes that are a little bit farther back. We just have a lot of tree cover. And we also have in Belmont a lot of windy streets. So if you don't want to be on a windy street and you want to be more like in a grid where you have like homes like this and then a sidewalk and all that, like Belmont will not check the box. But if you do like that windy feel and you like all different kinds of trees and not really the street lights at night, you just kind of like enjoy that kind of, I guess you could say, the topography of the town, it just kind of weaves through. Belmont could be your spot. To give you an idea on pricing in Belmont, it's going to be about 10% better value than nearby San Carlos. Schools here are top ranked. It's very sought after for many people because of that. But a 2-bedroom home, there's really not that many 2-bedrooms in Belmont, but that's going to be like in the high 1s. A 3-bedroom in Belmont is going to be high 1s up to high 2s. And a 4-bedroom is going to kind of start like mid 2s up to like mid 3s. Sometimes we'll go as high as 4. There's one neighborhood in particular where it does get pretty pricey. It's kind of right off a Hallmark up in the hills, right off of 280. And that doesn't really feel like, when people think about Belmont, it doesn't really feel like that because you do have sidewalks, you have some massive flat yards, you do have some street lights, you have the stellar location ranks at 280. I've done a couple transactions there in the $4 million range. It's one of my favorite neighborhoods on the whole peninsula. You should absolutely check it out if you kind of value what Belmont has, but you want something like a little bit different feel. Or if you kind of like this, where you don't have the sidewalks and you just can kind of walk around. But Belmont does get pretty hilly. So if you have a 2-year-old and you need to push a stroller, Belmont might not check the box. All right, so right now we're in the Baywood neighborhood in San Mateo, and this is one of my favorite neighborhoods on the whole peninsula. Why is that? Because you're walking, this is the downtown San Mateo. You have a really wide street. Like right now we're shooting this on Edinburgh, and you can kind of see there's, people are driving to school and whatnot, but we have a pretty wide street here. The homes are kind of set farther back in the street. Like let's take a look at this home, for example. We have some skeletons just kind of having a beer, it looks like. But I really like this neighborhood because you have really high tree density. You have some very old, mature trees, along with San Mateo Park. This is where we're gonna see like the oldest and biggest trees like in all of San Mateo. It's just so relaxing walking through here because it's so flat. It's so walkable. You're gonna see people all the time, all throughout the day, walking their dogs, pushing strollers, walking in downtown, and it's the top of a lot of people's lists. All right, so let me give you a quick idea on what homes cost in Baywood. They're not inexpensive. So there's not really 2-bedroom homes in the neighborhood, but a 3-bedroom home is gonna kind of start in the low to mid $2 million range and kind of go up to about 3, low 3s. A 4-bedroom home is going to kind of be starting in the low 3s, and prices are going to kind of top out in Baywood around 4, 4.5. That's kind of like the most expensive home in the neighborhood. You're going to get a little bit better value here than you will in nearby Burlingame. Probably not sure exactly why, but Burlingame's a little bit closer to San Francisco. Obviously, it has a really strong community feel, but Baywood is equal, in my opinion, from many home buyers' perspectives. So I think this area is cool. You have a lot of Spanish, Mediterranean style homes. Like let's just check out this home here. You have these Spanish style roofs on the top that can last like 100 years. You just have to replace the waterproof membrane underneath. We have another beautiful Spanish home. Like let's just take a quick look at this one across the street. And again, with the beautiful roof and architecture, another one here. So I just really love the feel that Baywood has. And that's kind of why it's at the top of my list if you're looking to buy a home in a neighborhood with a beautiful tree-lined street. This is another nice thing about the neighborhood. You're gonna see this is not unique just to Baywood, but like the neighborhood book exchange where people put books in, they take them, kind of like a little mini library. And I just kind of want to sound all cheesy, but it like warms my heart. I love seeing this kind of thing. Let's see, what do they got in here? All right, Brain, all kind of cool books, some kids books, some novels, pretty neat. All right, we're here in the Sunny Brae neighborhood in San Mateo, and this is also one of my favorite neighborhoods in San Mateo. You're walking distance to downtown, probably like a 6 to 8 minute walk. You have a lot of really cute homes in here. I kind of call this more of like a starter home neighborhood, but it feels super established. Homes in here, price-wise, is gonna be kind of high 1s and low 2s. You're not gonna see anything like in the high 2s or 3. You just kind of get some good options here. Most of the homes are gonna be ranch-style homes. You do see some people who have added on second stories, but most are gonna be one-level ranch-style homes with awesome floor plans. Just behind me over there is Sunny Brae Elementary School. I can hear kids like in the background right now laughing out on the playground. So I think that's a nice feeling. And the streets are just nicely paved. So some very basic things. I feel like Sunny Brae really checks the box from that perspective. Right now, we are in the Highlands neighborhood in Millbrae, and I'm really excited to show you this little pocket. It is super tree lined, as you can see around me. These are not new trees or young trees. These are really old trees that we'd kind of call heritage trees. So I just kind of love the tree cover here. But what's really cool about the Highlands neighborhood is we are walking distance to downtown Millbrae and Broadway, which is a huge selling point in my opinion. You're also really close to the Millbrae BART and Caltrain stations. So if you're commuting up to the city or you're going all the way down to the valley, this neighborhood is kind of a really nice sweet spot kind of in between. From a affordability perspective, Millbrae is absolutely not inexpensive. Just to buy a home in here, you're gonna be kind of starting around $2 million for a 2-bedroom home. 3 bedrooms still gonna start in the low 2s and then go up quite a bit from there. We don't really see too many new construction homes, but it's a very small percentage of the market. But we are seeing people invest very heavily into their homes in Millbrae, and that's kind of why this is one of my favorite pockets in Millbrae. The other parts are fantastic. You can be up in the hills, you can be in other parts of the flats, but for tree-lined streets, this is at the top of my list. Now I want to share with you guys a little bit about Hillsboro. So for all the other towns that we're covering in this video, there's particular neighborhoods that we're focusing on about tree-lined streets. But in Hillsboro, pretty much the whole town has tree-lined streets everywhere. It is an absolutely lush landscape. So every home in Hillsboro is pretty much going to be, there's a few exceptions, but on at least half an acre, which is a little over 21,000 square feet. So in Hillsboro though, one decision point for you is going to be if you want to be in a flatter area or if you want to be in a hillier area. Right now we're in a flat location, right off of Willow, right near the golf course and the Burlingame Country Club. This is a fabulous neighborhood, but there's really so many in Hillsboro. So just the big decision point is going to be, do you want to be again in the flats or in the hills? And that's going to drive price in a pretty meaningful way, because if you're in a flat walkable location, that's going to drive price, could be 20 or 30% more for a home in the flats than a home like way up in the hills. So if you're up in the hills, you're more likely to have a view. You could have a canyon view, or there could be a bay view. You could get a home that's in the flats, very much at the top of the hill where it kind of plateaus up by Darrell and Barbara, but other than that, it's probably gonna be a little bit more hilly. And a huge thing that drives value in Hillsboro is the topography of the lot. So if you're on a lot that's completely pancake flat, by like a couple of these homes that are around me here, that's gonna be a lot more expensive than you buy something on a half acre, maybe halfway up the hill or is the top of the hill, where maybe you only have 10 to 15,000 square feet of flat usable space. Obviously that's a lot compared to these other towns, but we can see that affect value, sometimes multiple 7 figures. So that could be $2 to $3 million difference just based on how usable the lot size is. So for Hillsboro, average median price is going to be, depending on the year, it's about $5.5 to $6 million. So it is one of the top 3 most expensive towns in San Mateo County, up there with many other expensive places around the country. If you're thinking about moving here, it's at the top of a lot of people's lists, of course. Location-wise, we're right next to Burlingame, or right next to parts of San Mateo. The community feel in Hillsboro is fantastic. There's 3 public elementary schools. They're all very highly ranked, and it's just an overall really great place to live. So if you really value privacy and you like having a lot more space and you value all this greenery and you're okay writing probably a pretty big check for landscaping on your own property, then this is the place to be. I love sharing with you guys a little bit about some of the different tree-lined neighborhoods in the peninsula. There's so many more that we could have included, but we had to pause here. Please consider dropping a like or subscribing. If you're thinking about making a move within San Mateo County or to San Mateo County, I'd love to be your peninsula real estate resource of choice. Drop me an email, give me a call, shoot me a text, and I'll see you guys in the next video.